Yeah.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Danielle Perez. Danielle is a stand-up comedian, writer, and actress, best known as the woman in a wheelchair with no feet who won a treadmill on The Price is Right, a 2018 stand-up NBC semifinalist. She has performed at comedy clubs and festivals across the country, including Laughing Skull, SF Sketchfest, Brooklyn Comedy Festival, and All Jane Comedy Festival. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
So, Danielle, if you weren't working as a comedian, writer, or actress,
what would I be doing?
What would you be doing?
I'd be deeply unhappy working accounts receivable at the Chester Paul Company in Glendale.
Is that your side job?
No, that's what I used to do before I did stand up.
What is Chester Paul?
Oh God, they're like a water filtration, wholesale parts and supplier, industrial parts supplier. Random. I dealt with a bunch of like plumbers and companies across the country asking them to pay their bills.
I see. So not even plumbers, but the worst plumbers.
The absolute worst ones. The ones that are actually doing the work.
and not paying their bills.
Yeah. Well, they're dealing with their accounting department, which is usually just their wives.
Right.
Oh, our accounting department, I'm sure.
So tell me about plumbers. So I've actually made an impassioned case for why plumbing is a good profession.
Oh, my mom would tell me constantly when I was younger, I wanted to be prosecuting attorney. Mm-hmm. And my mom was like, most plumbers make more than attorneys. Like, it was such a bizarre thing for my mom to like come at me with, where it's like, I'm telling you, I want to achieve like a real dream. Like, I'm the daughter of an immigrant woman, like, and I want to be an attorney. And you're just like, plumbers make more than attorneys. And it's like, what? Where is this? It was such like, no one in my family is like really like a trades person. Like, my dad is like an eye doctor, an optometrist.
I see.
So it was, they both went to college. It was just a kind of a bizarre thing for her to like really fixate on.
And was she encouraging you to do this, or she was just pointing out?
No, she was just like pointing that out. It was a very bizarre thing that she kind of fixated on, I think, like in high school. I don't know why.
You know what? I'm gonna side with her for a moment.
Okay.
Here's why being a plumber is better than being a lawyer. But you're not going to be either.
No, absolutely not. I don't have as much as I want to believe that I'm a type A personality, I have a Virgo midheaven. So I do like that. Mm-hmm. I am also, the follow through is exhausting. You have to cross every T, dot every I. So much of it is just diligence. Uh-huh. And that's exhausting.
That's funny. Well, okay. So, I think that plumbing has won out as far as like a good career in the fall. I mean, you're
constantly building stuff, and stuff needs to be maintained. It's a good living.
Yeah, it's good living. No one's happy to see their lawyer unless they're in jail.
Truly.
And everybody's always happy to see their plumber.
Well, until the plumber tells you how much it's going to cost to replace your water heater.
It's true. But you're like, well, let's get it done.
But I also want hot water, so let's just do it.
No debt. Right. So as a plumber, you do an apprenticeship, so you get paid to learn.
Oh, do you?
Mm-hmm. You don't go to plumbing school typically. You usually just start working with a master plumber.
Oh, that's great.
So you don't have to do that. So you get 3 extra years of income and no debt to start. And then you still have billable hours in the same way though. That's so you're only making
just to
money
come
while
out,
you work.
that's already, you're going to cost people money.
So you have to be working to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But as a comic, though, don't you find the need for diligence?
Yes.
I think it's a bait and switch, isn't it? Like, people are like, oh, I'm going to be a comic. I can sleep in.
You think it's like this cool, chill lifestyle. Oh, we're just drinking and hanging out in bars. And it's like, oh, anyone who's like actually very successful at this cannot be just like a raging alcoholic cokehead. Like that's just not possible. You have to show up to work on time. Like you have to show up for your spots. You have to like perform.
You just be writing regularly.
Yeah. You have to be constantly like creating and writing new material. And then like, if you want to make real money, which is like being in a writer's room, it's like you have to show up to work, have your brain be on all day because you're in a room pitching, writing, collaborating. And then you have the homework of like writing the script at night or like coming in with pitches for the next day on top of doing stand-up.
Yes. I think that's...
It's like not a fun, carefree lifestyle. It's like actually like legit work. And then I just finished my first writing job.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. Last week. So yeah.
Where was this?
It's for a new show on Netflix and I'm really excited about it, but it was definitely like balancing doing stand up at night. The first week I was like, I'm not going to do any shows at night because I want to be focused on work. The second week I was like, okay, maybe I can do a few shows. And I like did one and I was like, oh no, absolutely not. I still haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, I think that's hard. I suspect they're not giving you nap time in the writer's room. They should.
It's a weird thing because you're in the room and you're fueled by coffee and wanting to do well, especially like me. It's my first job. You know what I mean? I want to let them know like I wasn't a bum hire. They did a good job at picking me, but to constantly like be pitching and just aware of what is happening, you don't realize that you're on in the same way that you are when you're performing and you're in the moment and you're creating on stage, or you're using your brain so hard that when you get out of the room, I'm like, why am I so exhausted? Why can't I form sentences? And it's like, well, because you've been working all day, even though it seems like you're just sitting in a chair, like kind of having fun.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're doing, I think it's probably really depleting because it's highly evaluative. People are judging the goodness or the badness of your ideas. And then, using your brain is exhausting. And it's why most people don't use their brain. Yeah,
that was kind of wild. I was like, man, I guess I really haven't been using it all that much.
And I think, a little bit of pressure. I get that with teaching. So I do, sometimes I'll teach all day. Not all day. I'll be in the classroom area all day, but I do about 6 hours of teaching.
That's a lot standing.
I am wiped.
That's a lot.
I'm wiped out. And I've learned if I want to do those 6 hours really well and be excited for the next 6 hours, I don't plan any work afterwards.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll answer a few emails or do some like very shallow work. But if anything, I actually try to go get some exercise, work out the creaky bones and muscles, and then I kind of reward myself. And I've learned that I have to do that. So I get that. Like I can imagine you get home from the writer's room, you have something to eat, and then you're like, okay, I got to go out to a club. Yeah.
And I just was like, the prospect of it was like, this is way too, absolutely not.
and so, but yet you need to go out to the club.
I know I need to. So, it was cool. I was able to get in. I was able to do a few shows, but I ended up rescheduling the rest.
I see.
But fingers crossed, I can figure out that balance.
So I think most listeners to the podcast understand why you need to do the shows, but let's pretend one person doesn't know. Why is it that when you get a writer's gig, which is, I think it's one of the great jobs in entertainment.
Yeah.
I think that they pay okay. It's stimulating. It's regular work.
Yeah.
And so on.
It's a union job.
And yet you're like, oh, and we both agree. It was even just assumed. You got to go to shows. Why do you need to go to shows? Well,
because I'm a stand-up comedian. Some people do stand-up comedy, but they really just want to be writers. And I'm a performer. I love being on stage. I love doing stand-up comedy. You can't do it in a bubble or a vacuum. You can't just like write at home and do it in your mirror. You have to do it in front of real people. You have to get that feedback from the audience. You have to practice, running jokes to see if they work consistently, to see how you can make them better. And like that first week, I was like, oh my God, I haven't been on stage in a whole week. That was, that took me back because that's a long time.
And in a normal week, a non-writing writer's room week, how many times are you on stage?
I'm usually going up about 5 times a week,
okay.
which is good for Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think I hear that New York has the advantage over LA.
I mean, there's just
frequency.
So many more shows, and shows go later in New York. And there are also so many more clubs that are actually interested in developing new talent.
And things are closer.
I mean, you can take the subway and stuff, but it's not really for me because I am disabled and use a wheelchair. The subway system in New York is not fully accessible.
I can imagine.
So I have to take Ubers or Lyfts, and that's a pain in the butt because I have to, they cancel once they see me in the wheelchair. I went to New York in September. I mean, I go about once a year, but in September I was there for a week. And I was so sick of all these New York comics coming to LA and being like, you can do 4 shows a night in New York. LA sucks. LA comedy sucks. 4 shows a night. So I was like, fuck it. I'll do 4 shows a night. I landed in the hospital with pneumonia after doing 4 shows a night for a week. And it was like, oh, because no one does this. Absolutely no one.
I see. You can do it.
You can do it, but no one does that. So
I see. That's fair. Well, I saw you on a previous guest show, Jen O'Donnell's Ladies Room.
That was such a fun show.
It was fantastic. It was at the West Side Comedy Theater in Santa Monica. And I thought you were great.
Thank you.
And I was like, I want Danielle on my podcast.
Yay.
And so I emailed Jen to do this. So yeah, you have a knack for stand-up.
Thank you. I would hope so.
But you do seem... I also did some research on you.
Oh, okay.
Not enough, but I did some. So I had to check out this treadmill incident.
Oh, sure.
And by the way, if you're working on a movie about your life, what a great opening scene. Just a friendly nudge.
Thank you.
Just in case that's not happening.
We'll see if Drew Carey's cool with the cameo. Making an appearance.
Well, and then also what I thought was really great about it was Jimmy Kimmel had you on afterwards, and you were just so fantastic on that.
Oh, thank you.
And it was really great in part because I think you talked about how some people just were outraged by this. And what were your thoughts about it?
I just thought it was funny. It was really funny. I mean, I was there on a total whim.
Okay.
Truly, my friend Wendy Starling, she's a great comic in New York now, but she started in Los Angeles. So she was one of, I was like less than 6 months into comedy when all this happened.
I see.
So she was one of the first people that I really admired and looked up to. And, she befriended me. So I was like, oh, she's moving to New York. And, I have the time. Let's go to The Price is Right. She's getting a whole group of people to go. And I get on stage and I'm just like, it's silly. I just thought it was silly. I was like, oh, my friends will laugh at this.
Sure.
I truly wasn't thinking that, The Price is Right is this like international show that people are obsessed with. The fandom I really wasn't aware of. And so... I won the treadmill. I think the walk-in sauna is funnier, honestly.
Yes, sure.
But
so for the listener, you won not just a treadmill, but a suite of prizes, including
a walk-in sauna.
Yes.
And, Drew was just totally normal, treated it like a regular day at the office. I was the first name called down to contestants row, but the last person in the last game to get up on stage.
Could you imagine the producer is just thinking, God, I hope she doesn't win.
I
hope she doesn't win.
We had to play that game twice. They only showed it once in the episode.
Okay.
But everyone overbid the first time, so we had to do it again. And I got up on stage. It was just, you can't even write that. It was so fun. And when the episode aired, I was just blown away by the internet's reaction to it. It was like memes, and I had, I was being interviewed by BBC, CNN, People Magazine, and then Jimmy Kimmel's people called, and that was surreal. I was like, wait a minute, what? I'm going to be on Jimmy Kimmel Live. And I kept saying, I'm like, I'm a stand-up comedian. They're like, that's adorable. They were like, okay, no. Absolutely not. So I kept asking them, like, are there any like prep questions or anything that like you need me to do? And they're like, no, just show up at 4. We tape at 5. They didn't give me hair, makeup, wardrobe, nothing.
You were wearing like a
gold
dress.
sequin bodycon dress. My hair was blown out. No, I was like, that day I was like, I need to get a blowout. I need to get my eyebrows done. My best friends were with me. Like, we got to just like beat the face because we're going to be under, studio lights.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm going to be TV ready.
And indeed you were. Now, you did not take those same steps for today, except your nails are fabulous.
Thank you. Sorry, I know. I am. It's a lot of work. It's so much work.
I have an ex who says beauty is pain.
It is.
And she said, if you see a beautiful woman, she's either in pain or has been in pain.
She's suffering.
Yes. So you suffered for that. And they gave you a cruise.
They did. They gave me a cruise, a week-long cruise. The joke was wheelchair accessible cruise, wheelchair accessible accommodations. They were really fun with it.
Yeah. And I actually admit, like, I got a little misty when they gave you the cruise. Like, I thought it was so sweet.
It was really sweet. But my family and very close friends thought it was very, very funny because they know I hate cruises. So it was so much fun. It was great.
So you went on the cruise?
I did not go on the cruise. Okay. I feel very bad about not going on the cruise. I do. What happened was everything got a little crazy. And they were like, you have up until a year to go to the cruise. And I kind of just kept pushing it off.
Because you don't want to go on cruises.
Not that I didn't want to go, but I was like, maybe I can do a show where it's like America's Next Top Cruise mate, to pick someone to go on the cruise. My schedule kind of got overwhelming, and the idea of going on the cruise is like, where am I even going to fit it in? And that's on me.
Okay.
I still have the treadmill though. It's in a box in my living room.
Okay.
I keep saying I'm going to put together a fundraiser show to auction it off for charity. But the longer I wait, the more credits I get. So the more I'll actually be able to raise. So one day.
Look, this is all a windfall.
Yeah.
It's all a windfall. That's very funny. So are you working on this as a scene for a memoir or movie or something?
No, I'm working on 2 pilots, but neither of them. Well, the note I've gotten. Well, my. I know. I'm like trying to figure out.
Like making faces and closing her eyes. And
I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this in a way that is not the most obnoxious. But I'm very lucky, and I just got management this year.
Oh, congrats! That's great.
Thank you. I feel very happy with that, and I feel like I've jumped a huge hurdle, and I'm very thankful. But they're like, we're not going to tell you what to write, but. No one wants to have a story about a person doing stand-up who isn't famous, basically.
Okay.
Like that's, you know what I mean? It's like, they're like, we can tell you what's selling. What's selling are personal narratives grounded in reality, blah, blah, blah. So things like Rami, which I love and I think is great, or like Shrill, which is great. But like Shrill, yeah, she can be a writer in it because it's written by a woman who like legit is a writer and it's based on her memoir. She's like a person of note as a published author. So I honestly, shows about stand-up it can just feel very insidery, you know? I feel like people that love stand-up also kind of low-key wish they could do it and think they can do it. So their criticisms of it or their viewership of it it's less like, oh, I'm just enjoying something, and they want to be like a critic, and it's like, okay, whoa.
Yeah.
Just because you have like a Twitter account, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like certainly there are these shows. There's already a lot
And there's a lot. I mean, I think that, I love being a stand-up and I love comedy, but it's also where I am with that. If I want to speak to it truthfully, I think I need to be many more years in it to really come at it from a place that really is honest and true. Mm-hmm. Because I'm still, there's still a lot of rungs on the ladder I want to climb up.
Indeed, yes. Well, so obviously the marvelous Mrs. Maisel comes up, but that seems less about a show about stand-up than this story of a person's life. Mm-hmm. With that included and beyond. Yeah. The other movie, I haven't seen it yet. It's on my to-do list, and I want to see it in theaters before it goes away, is Mindy Kaling's new movie.
Late Night is so good.
I hear it's
Late Night is great. I went to a preview screening of it, and it's so good. It's so sharp. It's so funny. I mean, the jokes per minute, it's really punchy.
Is that right?
It's really punchy. It's really great.
Yeah,
and knowing people who are in late night writers' rooms, it definitely feels very real.
That's what I wanted to
feels
ask.
I mean, the thing is, it's like she's not a stand-up in it. She doesn't purport to be. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we can spoiler alert, or you're really precious about that.
No.
I will say that through a series of events, she ends up in this late night writers' room, but it's
the trailer gives that away.
Oh, do they? How
do.
She does? How she gets in the room?
I'm gonna. So if my impression was that she got in because they needed some diversity. That's all I know.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, in the show in the movie you'll kind of see. But the way they handle stand-up comedy in it is actually really good.
I see.
Because only really one of the writers is a stand-up.
Okay.
Which is, a lot of the people in writers. Most of the people I know in writers' rooms for late night and TV are stand-ups because they do stand-up. You know what I mean? And that's an avenue into writers' rooms. But some people most of them are just writers.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's already hard enough to be one.
Yeah.
And to be two.
Yeah.
Is, in part just because you're, as we were just alluding to, now you have to split your time.
One thing that I've noticed that's interesting, I just know this because as more of my friends and people around me get staffed on shows and in late night, there's an animosity from writers who are just writers and writers who got in the room because of stand-up or who do stand-up. Mm-hmm. There's a weird thing. And it's not from the stand-ups. The stand-ups don't care.
I see.
But the writers are really just it's weird. It's a weird energy.
That's interesting. The issue is that, I mean, stand-ups are writers.
Yeah.
It's not like you're an improviser.
Exactly.
Right. So if you do stand up, you perform your material, which you've written at some earlier point and are using stand up to revise and make it better. So in that way, it's the
logic train breaks down. So it's a little, that's just a little tidbit.
I see. That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Is it jealousy?
I think so. I mean, I think it's a thing. I've never been scared to do stand up. I saw my best friend was doing theater in Los Angeles, Black Box Theater, Shakespeare Theater, and her roommate was a stand up comedian. So we started going to a bunch of his shows. And by the third one, I was like, oh, he's not funny. I can do this.
I see.
And so we just started doing stand up. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have this thing where it terrified me. I also started doing it when I was a 30-year-old woman. So I think, I guess public speaking really is people's greatest fear, and being in front of people and speaking and
you're
being
I
funny.
Didn't have that.
Some people really are intimidated by that and scared to do that. And you're up there by yourself. So if you bomb, that's on you.
Yes.
You can't blame a room for that. It's not oops, bad pitch. I guess we just didn't use it that day.
Right.
It's not a rejection email that only you got for submitting to something. There's a lot you have to, as much as you may want that, you also have to take all of the rejection and silence and no's with that publicly, at least for the people in the room. And that's a scary prospect for some people.
Yeah, I could see that. Do you, what do you fear?
Oh God, no one liking me. The same thing all comics fear. Everyone hates me. I'm a fraud. Everyone's just humoring me and being nice. Everyone secretly. Everyone's in a group. Everyone in the whole world is in a giant group text that I'm excluded from. And they're like, ugh, she's the worst.
I thought you were going to say nothing. Nothing scares
Nothing.
me.
I wish. I try to act like nothing scares me.
You know, this that feeling that you just expressed, much funnier in a much funnier way than I could have.
Imposter syndrome, but make it hilarious.
The world's biggest group text is very nice. Is that a bit you have?
No.
Oh, there's some potential there, maybe.
Hell yeah.
So, I think this is a very interesting idea, one that I've been kind of kicking around. And I can't claim to have come up with it. I've certainly heard people talk about it. What's interesting is, you know who talks about it? Not comics. Typically guys with Asperger's.
Okay.
Or, you know, which I mean guys who are in the tech world, who are entrepreneurs.
Okay.
You know, those things can go hand in hand. It's advantageous, you know, to be a little bit on the spectrum as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know, just be able to focus and work for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Every single day till you make $1 billion. This idea is that there's this leftover kind of tribalism that is part of our, I mean, you know, some people would call it part of our DNA or wired within us, and others would just say it's like a leftover vestige that's still part of our culture when we lived in this hunter-gatherer kind of world where if you did do something stupid or embarrassing or bad for the group, that was incredibly threatening.
It's right? Like you're a liability.
And you get left behind and to be exiled, you know, to be exiled was to be killed.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? You can't
be left for dead.
That's right. Well, you know, we have Postmates now and DoorDash, so and Uber Eats. And so, I mean, to be frank, you can live a solitary life with no concerns about your survival, you know.
Sure.
Now,
is that an emotionally fulfilling life?
No, perhaps no. But what I'm saying is, but the other one is that even if you get left behind by your social group, there's another social group who will take you in. You know,
yeah,
and the idea is this is a big world. You know, 20 million people live in Los Angeles County. You know, kind of. If it doesn't work out with this group, there's another group that it'll work out with, and yet that we'll call it tribalism, we'll call it the monkey mind. You know, doesn't recognize that, right? It takes that kind of ultra rational person to say, you know what, it's okay for me to misbehave. It's okay for me to be non-normative. It's okay for me to do stuff that other people don't think I should be doing. You know, I mean, look, I'm not suggesting they say break laws or, you know,
do
harm.
Someone, commit a homicide. Just live your life.
but you can live you can live a high integrity, ethical life in which you may disappoint people in order to live the life you want to live.
Sure.
In order to create the things that you want to create. But this leftover vestige of our previous world keeps us from doing that. Don't rock the boat. Don't, you know what I mean? And so when I hear you say like, oh, you know, this concern, you know, I think like, I wonder, you know, I want, and I'm speaking for myself,
sure,
not for you. I wonder, I'm like, how many more boundaries should I be pushing in order to fulfill my life? Knowing, yes, we live in a world of outrage culture and where people are very comfortable giving you feedback about what's right and what's wrong. And not even your friends, these are strangers.
My favorite thing about Twitter is that it was broken for a really long time and I couldn't see any of my @ replies. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I want this broken forever. I didn't even try to fix it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. Like, you know, I mean, you live in a world where you are breaking rules and you are, you know, pointing out the norm. Well, I think stand up. I I think that comics in general kind of live a sort of a little bit of a non-normative life. You know, they don't accept the typical as okay. You know, in terms of, I mean, what is it that stand-ups do is they're typically pointing out what's wrong versus what's right. And so she's looking
I'm like,
up to the left.
I know. I'm just like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I guess stand-up comedy is so ever evolving and changing. Sure. You know, I think more with the, you know, everyone hates me kind of thing is I'm less concerned about, well, there's so many things. Number one, I think that, you know, not saying that, yeah, the group that you went to preschool with has to stay your same friend circle like all throughout your life. But I do think it feels there is something for someone who is like, oh, they never stay in town too long. Or they kind of like, you know, 5 years within one scene and then it's like 5 years in another and 5. It's like never having a home base or something like that. That seems a little suspect. Okay. A little griftery. It's like, what's going on there? But I think, you know, the format of stand-up is changing and I appreciate people that really push the boundaries of that. There's been a really big influx of New York comedians, stand-ups moving to Los Angeles, and they're a little more cabaret, you know, I guess like very like alt, I guess. And
when you say cabaret, what do you mean?
You know, they're kind of incorporating like musical, maybe characters. Maybe it's a little bit more of like a one-person show than a traditional stand-up set-up punchline format. And I like that because it's someone taking a risk, someone being authentically themselves and doing what they find funny, and you seeing an audience come. You know, they're coming with like huge fan bases to LA. Like you don't just move to New York from LA because you feel like it. You move because you have to, right? It's the next step. All roads lead to LA. So I find that very encouraging with stand-up because I feel like it can be, no one is more critical about stand-up than other stand-ups. And that's the thing I fear is she's not a real stand-up. Oh, okay. She was on Jimmy Kimmel, but did she do stand-up? Is that a credit? It's bullshit. It's the, what you think, and you shouldn't be doing stand-up for other stand-ups. So,
that doesn't pay the bills.
It sure doesn't. But how can you be truthful in your voice and do comedy in a way that excites you? Yeah. So that's what I want. But that's scary. It's scary to say, I'm going to do a one-person show, or I'm going to do a show that isn't traditional setup punchline. I'm going to play around with the formula or the format. And yet trust that people will show up, or trust that people will even laugh. When it's like, you know what gets a laugh. You know what's safe. Yeah. So I have two reactions as I listen to this. So the one is that this is easy for me to say, but comedy rewards novelty in the sense of more than other forms of art, I would say, in the sense that like when you by nature of being a comic, you have to be doing different stuff anyways, you know, like that. If you're doing the same stuff you did before, people are like, she just does the same thing over and over again. If you do the same kind of stuff that someone else does, they're like... Some people love that. Some people, that's all they need. I mean... I
guess.
There's a lot of people on the road that make decent livings, and it's like they're just doing the same thing over and over and over again.
That's fair. Although that's more the commerce than art side of it all.
Sure. But it's like, who is art for? You know what I mean? If it's people buying tickets...
Well, no, I get that. I get that. You know, I get the fact that people have to pay the bills. In terms of like doing stand-up for other stand-ups, I wonder, you know, you were saying, you know, having peers who are writers and so on now. I talked to Mike Reese recently, who writes for Simpsons. And one of the things that's really striking is the number of jobs that he has gotten because of the people he knows, or vice versa.
Yeah.
The number of jobs he's helped people get in that way. And, you know, these peer effects, these generational effects are present in academia also. so the people I went to graduate school with during the same time period, we were assistant professors together and beyond. These are people who they've helped open doors. If you get a job at another place, it's often because you have a friend or acquaintance there. You get invited to give talks. You get opportunities that come
from your network.
And so in that way, actually, it does matter to the degree that those other stand-ups.
Sure. I mean, jobs, you can't be an island. I think that there's like this huge myth with stand-up that you just have to be great, that, that no matter what, as long as you're funny is funny, and funny always rises to the top, and you can be successful without any of the bullshit. And it's like, that's just not true. Other people have to recommend you for things. Other people have to book you. Other people have to bring up your name. And if no one's doing that, it doesn't matter how funny you are. If you're an asshole that everyone hates to be around.
Yes.
I mean, you got to be really, 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 really fucking funny, and not that many people are. Yeah. Truly.
Yeah, I agree.
You're not. Like, you're not this great genius that's worth all of that trouble.
Yeah, there are plenty of funny people. And
there's plenty of funny people who are a lot easier to deal with and work with and get along with.
I agree. There's this great... So speaking of Mike Reese, this story came up in the conversation. He was saying that he really cares about working in friendly writers' rooms.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It's very important for him. He was saying that the Simpsons writers' room is a very amicable, fun, healthy place.
How many people is that? It seems like it'd be a really big room, right?
I think there are there's over 20 writers for the Simpsons, but
and they have multiple showrunners, right?
Yeah. They don't all work on at the same time. And so the day I visited him, it was just him, another person, and a PA.
Oh, cool. So they kind of break off in teams.
Yeah. And
nice.
He was, I think, works in more of a consulting role and doing punch-ups and
That's
so on.
Awesome.
In any case, he was saying that maybe they had 1.5 bad days in the entire run of the show. You know what I mean? Where it was really combative and so on. He was and in his book, he talked about a particular writer's room where there was this one guy who was just an asshole. And it's so funny. So the showrunner, producer, whoever says to this writer, listen, you can't be an asshole or we're going to have to let you go.
Yeah.
And the guy said, and he must have been good because the guy said, I need to think about that.
That's honestly amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
And hilarious. So wonderful. let me get back to you on that.
I'm not sure I don't
know if I'm going to take the note about the attitude adjustment. Let me just think on it.
So he went home and talked to his wife about it.
Oh, that is so amazing.
And he came back and he goes, nah, I can't do it. I need to go.
That's incredible.
So
I need to know who this writer is. I'm obsessed
he
now.
He doesn't say the name.
Biggest fan. I'm their biggest fan now.
There is that. Look, I'm sure that person has made his money.
Sure. I'm sure. Yeah. If he didn't need a job enough that he could just not work it, I'm sure he is fine.
Yes, that's right. But that's the exception, of course, yes, right? You know what I mean? But it's just such a fun story.
That's such an amazing story. But with stand-up comedy, you succeed on the goodwill of your fellow comics. That's a lot of the argument for doing a lot of these independent comedy festivals that don't pay any money and don't have any industry. You're going outside of your city, meeting other comics from other cities, connecting with them, building friendships so that when you go and visit, they can get you spots. When they come visit your city, you can help them get spots. You know what I mean? It's a community. And yes, it's a one person sport when you're up on stage, but we all want to see good comics succeed. Mm-hmm. We all want to see funny win.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen if you don't nurture it, if you're not, hosting mics and creating shows and putting people up, and recommending people for things.
Yeah. So indulge me for a moment. Let's run through some of so on one hand, right, stand-up seems like, you're largely writing your material alone and you're performing it alone. However, as we're both in agreement that it's not really a solo endeavor, that to be successful, you need others.
Yes.
So let's go through let's just try to list out all the ways that you need others. So I'll start and then you fill in.
Sure. I mean, I can tell you like my
Yeah, sure. Let's use you.
I started stand-up. So I started with my best friend, Madison. We've known each other for 15 years. So long friendship before stand-up. And I was just like, what do we do? Okay, we go to open mics. Okay, well, now we're going to open mics. She's like, we need to start a show. It's like, oh, okay. Why do we need to start a show? Well, because that's a guaranteed spot for stage time. Also, we can book other funny people and like get to know other funny people and create those friendships and relationships. Fine. So we start Gentrification, and it was a good show. It was a kind of a hot show for a little bit, and so people wanted to be on the show.
I see.
And I mean, I'm sure I got booked by people who thought that I was going to book them on the show, but we tried to be very, like, have a lot of integrity and just be like, we want to book funny people. But with it was about, our focus was also having a diversity showcase. So we were booking women of color, men of color, queer people, disabled comics. Like, that was the focus of the show because we just saw such a lack of diversity on the East Side where we started doing stand-up, or just in stand-up in general.
Okay.
So with that, it's like, I want to know who the other Latina comics are. I want to know who the other Black comics are. I want to know who the queer comics are, because there's so few of us and we so rarely get booked together. We don't get time to connect. And so that when someone asks, oh, where are the Latinas? I can be like, here's a list. I know fucking 20 of them. We're not these special unicorns. There's an abundance of us. There's too many of us to be getting too few opportunities. So now, whenever there are, opportunities to submit maybe a writing packet, like the SNL writing packet or something like that, or, stand up NBC, or something like that. It's like, I share that with this network that I am now connected to, because the more of us that show up, the more they have to recognize and make space for us.
I see. Yes.
So for that for me is very important. And maybe that's a little bit different, I think, than like the way that you wanted to go down it.
No, that's fine. Like, that's good.
But for me, because it's like, I'm Afro-Latina, I'm disabled, I'm a woman in stand-up. There's just not a lot of mainstream visibility for women of color, queer people in comedy. And for me, representation is really important, and having those voices be seen and heard. So sharing resources is important. Supporting each other is important. Showing up to each other's shows and being a unit. Like, that's my success with Gentrification and Thigh Gap Comedy that I started with Madison Shepard and Danielle Radford. It's like, we were able to do that because we created our own thing, and we weren't really worried about the establishment as it existed accepting us. It's like, oh, but we're actually making very dope, cool stuff. We're making cool shows, and we're booking cool, funny people. And it's like, you guys got to catch up. So it always, sometimes I get a little, people will kind of complain about shows not booking them or these people and stuff like that. And I mean, not to say that I've never been like mad that like a show just won't book me, but most of the good things I've gotten have been because of other women and women of color. And yeah, a few guys too, but I'm more interested in a matriarchy. I'm more interested in linking up with the other people that know what we're up against and know how hard this fight and battle is.
That makes sense. The reason I'm asking about this is, I just think, people talk about like the lone genius.
Yeah.
And any lone genius story you look at, you find an uncle, a mom, a friend, a partner, a team, a teacher, this, that, like, that has contributed to, this lone genius may head a group, but they still need the group.
You need the group. And I mean, you see that especially, in comedy. Well, entertainment loves a young breakout success. Oh, they're 20, they're 21. They started comedy when they were 16. They love to just like romanticize this idea of this just like genius ahead of their time that just had it from day one. And the thing is,
there's someone behind that.
There's someone behind that. There's that was a comic that a very successful comic was like, let me take you under my wing, basically. That 100% always happens. There's another comic that's like, let me put you in contact with some people. Let me get you stage time. How can I help you? How can I be your mentor? And that's wonderful and amazing. But to say that they just did it on their own, it's like, there's a support system.
Yes. I mean, even the typical, and I've seen this happen, even it's just simply like you do a set and then you're hanging out with your mates afterwards and they're like, that joke, have you thought about, like, they just offer ideas. I mean,
yeah, that's the great
punch
thing
ups
about open mics is like you're watching people's sets evolved, giving tags. Yeah. It's community. You're in the trenches together.
Yeah. I was listening to a interview with Nikki Glazer where she was talking about roasting people, and
comics are always giving suggestions for roast jokes.
She puts out, she basically emails her friends and is like, I'm roasting X person. Yeah. And they're just like,
oh yeah.
They're tapping on their computer. Oh, you should say this, I
love roast battle. Yeah, no, my roast battle, one of my good friends, Paige Wesley, she's an amazing fucking roaster. She's such a killer. But it's like, she's always sending me her jokes beforehand and I'm giving her jokes. Yes. And, we're punching up stuff. But it's like, I mean, I'm not saying that like I write her jokes. She obviously writes and stuff, but it's like you're always looking. Any good writer knows that you need feedback.
Indeed, yeah,
you 100%. Why not have another set of eyes that you trust and think is funny? Look over stuff and see what. That's why you have a writer's room. Yes. You're not just writing it all yourself.
Speaking of roast battles, I didn't know much about them, frankly. I mean, I knew from the Humor Code, I knew about roasts in the Friars Club and so on. But I had Julie Seaball on, who's a comedy journalist, and she wrote the book. She wrote the book about roast battles, and so she's taking me some Tuesday night to the Comedy Store to see. It's some so roast
fun.
Battles.
I love it. There's truly nothing like roast battle at the Comedy Store in the Belly Room. Okay, it's so much fun.
So make a case for it if you don't mind, because I've lost a little of my. I mean, I was a teenage boy, so I did my, I engaged in roast battles before they were called roast battles. It was called busting, bust on each other.
Bust on each other.
Yeah, you bust on each other. You
got made fun of by a pack of black teens.
Actually, yes, but they happened to be my friends, and so and I made fun of them. You know what I mean? That kind of thing, and so. I have to admit, I've lost a little of my appetite for it. As prepping for Julie's show, I watched some roast battles, and they are entertaining. What is it what is so special about the Belly Room? So for listeners, the Comedy Store is on Sunset Boulevard. It's
the world famous comedy store.
The world famous comedy store, and we actually do a bit of a profile of it in Chapter 2 of the Humor Code, but. There's 3 rooms. There's the main room. There's the
OR, the original room.
The original room,
and
yes.
The Belly Room.
And the Belly Room. And so this happens. And the Belly Room is...
The Belly Room is upstairs. It's up this little flight of stairs. And it's this, it's a tiny room.
Very brightly lit stage, as I recall.
Yeah, brightly lit stage. And...
So it's dark. You basically look out into darkness as a comic. Great. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. But every Tuesday night, they do roast battle at the Comedy Store, and it's verbal boxing. 2 comics going head to head, joke for joke.
And they're making fun of each other.
Insults are being thrown, but you got to make it funny. you know, some people go up there and they just say mean stuff. And it's like, that's not funny. It's got to be funny. We're laughing. And that's the thing too.
Have you done it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to do roast battle pretty often. Now I mostly just, the thing about roast battle is it does take away a lot from stand-up writing.
Yeah. And it's not transferable.
No, 100%. So once you use those jokes, they're done.
Yes. Right.
So I really love roast battle. I was battle ranked after my first one.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
I said I was battle ranked after my first roast battle.
Ooh.
She's good. She's good at writing a roast joke. But
what if you were going to roast me right now, what would you say?
Oh my goodness. I don't want to do that. I would like to leave still in your good graces.
I promise I'll air this no matter what you say.
But
she's like, oh my God, I could have
I'm
a field day with you.
Sidestep it. Didn't know a girl in a wheelchair could just sidestep so swiftly and so easily.
That's fine. Okay, it's probably for the best.
I think it's for the best. Go to roast battle and see, and then you'll understand why.
I can just tell you whether that group of black boys were worse than you.
Oh my God. But the reason I love it is, at least, you know, what makes it special in LA comedy is that I only roast people that I genuinely think are funny, that I like.
I see. Yeah, of course.
You know, there's a respect there.
That makes sense.
Because you don't want to roast someone that sucks.
Or your enemy.
Why would you give them that? Why? Because look, I know what they're going to say about me. I'm a fat, disabled black woman in a wheelchair with no feet. Like, come on now. Like, and if I'm going to be called those kinds of things by someone, it needs to be someone I respect.
Yeah. It's sort of, you know, the best roasts, I think, feel like teasing and teasing versus bullying.
Yeah.
You know, teasing comes
No one wants to see a bully.
Yes.
No one wants to see someone beat up on someone that's like weaker than them. But I think that's also the really great thing is like, you can see this like scared, timid little girl that's like, who let this 12-year-old in here against this like big burly doofus of a guy?
Right.
Who's going to win? You want her to win.
Yes.
And you know what? Oftentimes she does, because her jokes are killer.
Yeah, because muscles don't matter in a roast battle. Like
my friend Hannah Michaels, she's so funny. She's such a brilliant writer. She's such a great writer. And she, like, her roast battles are so great. And she'll just take on these, like, you know, crazy men. And you're just, like, looking at her. And it's like, that's just how strong a joke writer she is. It's so fucking funny.
The pen is mightier
than the sword.
Yes.
And it's, you know, I think there's a lot of catharsis in it where we're confronting all the ugly truths about ourselves and taking ownership of it and laughing at ourselves. And I mean, frankly, you know, people talk about PC culture and blah, blah, blah. The roast battle is truly a safe space. Like, it is the safest space in comedy for comedians because nothing is off. Yeah. Absolutely nothing's off.
It's a fascinating...
Maybe not for the audience, but for the comics doing it, truly anything and everything is on the table.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It is kind of an exception where you don't hear the kind of outrage
because everyone agrees on the rules.
And
everyone is there's an understanding of what it is.
That makes sense.
Because if I was at a regular show and someone was introing me with the kind of things people say at roast battle, or if the judges were saying that kind of those things, because it's like you go back and forth and then there's judges and they provide commentary after the battle for the main event. They like score each round. Usually main events are 3 rounds. And so they're, you know what I mean? It's like everyone's making jokes. They have like the Saudi prince who's like this character, and it's just 9/11 jokes and women as slaves jokes. And it's your face, your eyes are getting wider and wider, but we all know what it is, you know, and there's an understanding of it, and you're encouraged to just fight back with words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone wants to say something really sexist at me. It's like, oh, you better watch out because I'm going to talk about your teeth, your hair, and your body too.
Yeah, I think one thing that besides the rule thing, which makes good sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there are these ground rules.
There's ground rules, yeah. And all original material. And then afterwards you hug.
Yeah, I see.
Every battle ends with a hug.
Yeah,
and the ones
nice.
that don't, it's like, usually wasn't a good battle and it was weird and someone battled someone they didn't like and there was real beef and it's like,
I see.
That's not fun. It's a show. It's entertainment.
Yes.
We're putting on a show.
The fact that it's equal opportunity seems to help, right? So when it's one way, so if you're making fun of a group and they have no chance to respond, you're making fun of someone in the audience, they have no chance to respond. But in roast battle, you go tit for tat, so the reciprocity probably helps also. And so, yeah, I think that's a very funny, and I can see why it would also attract a certain audience member who might be a little bit tired of the limits and the rules and so on, or it might.
Yeah, roast battle fans, that's honestly something I don't super engage. I don't like to engage with anyone online that I don't know. Okay. Truly, I stay away from fandoms. Roast battle fans, I don't know.
You can't.
There's a weird, because they live Periscope the roast battles at the Comedy Store every week.
Okay.
And on Periscope, it's on Twitter. You watch it, you can see like the live comments. I just turned those off.
I see. Yeah.
I don't want to hear what someone who's never done stand-up thinks about stand-up. I truly do not care. Don't at me. I don't want to hear it. I will ignore you.
Yeah.
The people in the belly room are generally, it's a mix of people that heard it was a cool show, saw it on TV. It's a lot less of the fandom.
I see. Because
the fandom is usually online. It's people that find it and kind of latch on to it and they can't be there every week. I mean, sometimes there are people that like are there every week and stuff and obsessed, but it's less of that and more of just people that are like, oh, I heard this was a cool thing to do.
It's different.
It's LA. It's the Comedy Store. It's a tourist destination.
Yes. This equal opportunity element, I really puzzled over why the change from the original Friars Club roast to the Comedy Central roast worked. So like the roast of Bruce Willis, that format versus like a Friars Club format. Yes. Yeah. Which, I
think ratings, they want money. That's what it is.
Yeah, no, but I just think like the Comedy Central ones are so much more vicious than the Friars Club. And I puzzled over why that worked, especially for someone who's trying to understand what makes things funny. And what I realized was that the Friars Club roasts truly come from a place of love.
Yeah.
So you get roasted by your friends and, the people who know you and know you well and so on. And you could tell that they love you.
Yeah.
And so then that makes sense.
Yes.
The Comedy Central roast, these are strangers roasting people. And these are people who may not even be as beloved to begin with.
100%.
But the insight I had was that it actually shares something similar to the roast battles, which is everybody who does roasting for Comedy Central's roasts also gets roasted.
Yeah, everyone on the dais is fair game.
Everybody, so people will get up, make fun of their fellow presenters, and then they finish off with the person kind of thing. And so it has that equal opportunity feel to it. So which is, if I'm going to roast, I'm going to get roasted also. And I think that gives a level of license that makes it work in the same way that you just described.
Definitely,
for Tuesday night. Yeah.
Yeah, if it was just a bunch of people going in and no one else was getting roasted,
I don't think it would work.
No, 100%. That would be difficult to watch, especially if it's people that don't really know the person. And it's like, why are they saying these crazy things? I mean, I think what Comedy Central has done really well with those roasts is that all the comedians, it's like Natasha Leggero knows Nikki Glaser. You know what I mean? And they know Jocelyn or Pete Davidson. They're all, these are all people that are kind of already friends and in the same circles. So it's that same camaraderie where they can go after each other.
Yes.
Knowing that these are just jokes and We're just having fun.
Yeah, and they're going to laugh in response.
Yeah.
And the bigger the burn, the bigger the laugh.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to, before we wrap up, I want to, so you, as you said, you host the show Gentrification, and you've talked about being being an advocate for diverse comics. You also are an advocate with regard to disabilities.
Sure.
So you've been doing.
I mean, because I'm disabled, it's like you are de facto.
Yeah.
It's the thing. There's such little representation of disability in entertainment, on TV, in comedy, that you become a de facto one. I mean, I don't want to take away like real activist work from like people who are 100% activists and that's what they do. And they work in academia or in, in
nonprofits or
nonprofits
NGOs
and
or
stuff like
government.
that.
Sure, but that's
yeah.
And so you've done speaking. You're an advisor. Tell me like your flavor of activism. How are you doing it?
I mean, my flavor.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Roll.
What's your flavor? No, I like to be an advocate by doing, by being visible. Mm-hmm. So doing stand-up comedy, being on shows, being in a writer's room, like actually doing the work and being visible.
I see.
I think that's the most important kind of and true activist work that you can do if you know what I mean? If you say you're a comedian, then be a comedian. Mm-hmm. I'm not an activist that started doing stand-up comedy. I'm a comedian.
I see.
And that's why I don't want to, there's a lot of people that can speak a lot more eloquently about the need for representation and, the struggle for access and Medicare for all and all of that. But I think just the more that disabled people take up space, the better it is for everyone.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
That's really like my kind of guiding light with all of it. And it's the same with, I'm also like Afro-Latina, to be visible is to be undeniable. Mm-hmm.
And as we were talking about earlier, once you make it,
that opens the door. And then I'm like, all right, rush in, get in.
Yeah.
Before they try to close it again.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so the idea that like,
but yeah, once they see something work, and they're like, oh, okay, maybe we can do a little more of that.
Yes, exactly.
It's not such a risk. It's not so scary. I mean, there's no way that I could be given the opportunities I have been given, if not for women who've come before me, women of color who've come before me, who've shouldered a lot more no's and hostile work environments.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that as you were talking about earlier, the challenges of being in New York. I mean, even LA may be better, but it's still not good.
It's still not. And it's still the kind of thing that, I can't just tell the improv, you need a ramp. I have to kind of just get people to lift me on stage until one day the manager is like, oh, there's got to be a better way.
There's got to be a better way. What can we do?
Maybe we can get a ramp. Oh, a ramp? That's a great idea. You had a great idea. Now there's a ramp. There's ramps at the improv. That's awesome.
Yes.
Dynasty Typewriter, beautiful venue. Every time I get asked to perform there, I tell the producers it's inaccessible and it needs to come from you to get fixed.
Right.
Because it can't come from me. I can't take that shot. But you know what? They're getting ramps.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's on my list of places to go. I mean, I'm new to LA.
Yeah. It's beautiful. On Thursday, I don't know if this is too early to plug, but Time Out LA is doing a special showcase called Made in LA.
Oh, really?
And it's some of the top comics in LA from Los Angeles, and I'm performing on it.
Oh, that's great. It is too early to plug this. This will come out
but
later.
You can come.
I may be able to do it because
awesome.
I want to go I want to check out that space. I've heard people rave about it, and I'm glad that they're getting a ramp. So I asked this question of all my guests. Final question.
Oh, man.
What are you reading, listening to, or watching that's great.
That's great.
Not just good, that's just fantastic.
That's great.
You only need to give me one thing.
I mean, Big Little Lies was great until that whack-ass finale.
Okay, well, finales are always...
They're always bad. It was so great. The first half was great.
Okay. You want to do one more?
Oh God. It's all like, these are all things on my to-do list. It's reading, watching, or...
Listening to.
That's great. Ooh. Oh, I mean, I do love Megan Thee Stallion right now.
Who is
Hot
this?
Girl Summer. She's a rapper. I want to say from Texas, maybe Houston.
Okay.
I'm not even sure.
I like when people give music responses. I rarely get music responses, and lately I've been getting music responses.
I think
What's her name?
Megan the Thee Stallion.
Okay.
She is really great. She has a song called Hood Rat Shit. And there's this like old viral video of this like little boy who's being interviewed by the news because he like got in trouble for something. I don't even know what it was. He's like, I just want to do hood rat shit with my friends. And so they like cut that from, she just made a song about that video basically. And I think it's very, very funny.
I see.
But, you know, she champions the Hot Girl Summer, which is what we're all celebrating this summer.
I see.
You know, she's a cool, fun girl. Just like, I like to fucking dance and have fun with my friends and, you know, date a guy that's rich until he's broke, you know?
I will check it out.
Just a real fun, carefree vibe that's joyous and doesn't take itself too seriously. And she's actually a really great rapper. But I like that kind of, you know, it's similar to like Cardi B or like the City Girls, where it's like, we're just having fun. We're just some girls kicking around, we're cute and we're being pretty reckless, but we're having a good time. I like that. I like when women are allowed to be joyful.
Well, Danielle, you certainly are a joyful woman.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for doing this. I knew it would be great when I saw you at Ladies' Room. And I might see you on Thursday night. I'll see what I can do.
So excited for that.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw next week for another fun, fascinating conversation on I'm Not Joking.
Yo.